All right, I'm here. Twitch.tv/110sports, 110sportsmedia.com/live. Thank you so much for joining us on a Friday, making us a part of your day. My name is Josh. This is the JMULL Show. You know, a lot happened this week. Quite a bit happened this week, especially in the NBA over the last 3 days. We're going to talk about a lot of it. Of course, we got the NBA draft. We'll talk about some of the picks, some of my favorite picks, some of the things that made me scratch my head, the teams that I thought came away winners, all of that and more. We'll also talk about some non-draft NBA stories. Gordon Hayward has opted out of his $34 million and will become a free agent, and certainly not out of the realm of possibility that he comes back to Boston for a lesser contract. But he could also get thrown, New York could throw a lot of money at him. Atlanta could throw a lot of money at him. We'll see what actually ends up happening there with Hayward. Kelly Oubre Jr., the Golden State Warriors practicing their right to their trade exception that they got when they moved Andre Iguodala last season, picked up Kelly Oubre with the just horrible news about Klay Thompson tearing an Achilles in a workout in Southern California a couple days ago. That was one of the bigger news pieces of the day on draft day, and sort of sent a lot of people into a frenzy. But so they made a move to fix that, and we'll get to that here in a minute as well. Let me set the rest of the agenda for you. Like I said, we'll start with the NBA draft and really go through the week in the NBA. Then I want to spend a few minutes talking about the Cardinals and Seahawks last night. Those are two solid football teams. We'll talk about them here in a few minutes. And then the Podium. So this week, the Memphis Zoo, this might be the most important news of the entire week. This week, the Memphis Zoo named a baby giraffe Ja-Raff, as in Ja Morant. That's whoever came up with that name needs a raise. But it got the gears turning in my brain here, and I've come up with three more fun names for zoo animals that can be derived in a similar way from star athletes. One's a baseball player, one's a basketball player. But we'll get to those with the Podium at about 11:40 or so. Look at the football schedules this weekend, and maybe look at some possible bets and get out of here for the weekend. But we'll start with the biggest sporting event of the week, the NBA draft. You know, after all the speculation, after all what, the Timberwolves were shopping that pick until they made that pick, essentially. Nobody knew what the Golden State Warriors wanted to do. Nobody knew. There was everybody and their mother had a guess for what the NBA, what the Warriors were going to do with that pick. But at the end of the day, we had 14 lottery picks made by the teams who, going into draft night, were supposed to make those picks. The first trade that was actually made was with pick 16 and Isaiah Stewart. Isaiah Stewart actually going to the Pistons, but that pick was originally the Trailblazers. The Trailblazers sending that pick to Houston in return for Robert Covington and Trevor. It sent that pick along with Trevor Ariza in return to Robert Covington. And then Houston then traded that pick and Trevor Ariza to Detroit for a future first-round pick, which is that gave the Rockets the freedom to use their mid-level exception in free agency. The Rockets, of course, being a hard-capped team, and there you go. So that was the first pick that was actually traded in this year's draft. which is crazy because after all the speculation and nobody really knowing what was going to happen, you had the 3 guys that were always supposed to go top 3 in this draft. It might not have been the order that it was always supposed to be, but it was the 3 guys. Anthony Edwards, drafted by the Timberwolves as the number 1 overall pick, fits in there more obviously than Wiseman and LaMelo Ball, especially when you get a guy like Ricky Rubio, which was one of the more underrated trades, I think, of that of draft night. The Timberwolves trading, getting Ricky Rubio, trading the 17th pick to the Thunder for Ricky Rubio and 25, I believe. 25 and 28, I believe was the actual trade. I can make sure I get that right. So yes, the Timberwolves are in talks to trade the 17th pick to OKC for Ricky Rubio and picks 25 and 28. So LaMelo coming would not have made sense either. So that makes even more sense that they went and got Anthony Edwards, can fit into that area. You know, the starting lineup there now is, Ricky Rubio makes starters money, so it's probably a Ricky Rubio. You got Ricky Rubio, D'Angelo Russell, Anthony Edwards, Karl Anthony Towns, and somebody else in that on the wing in that front court. But the Timberwolves completely restructuring their perimeter. On draft night, drafting Anthony Edwards, drafting Leandro Bolmaro, drafting Jaden McDaniels. Bolmaro being an Argentinian guard, Jaden McDaniels being a forward out of Washington. Completely redefined their perimeter. I like Ricky Rubio's leadership, veteran feel. I mean, James Johnson was part of that trade, and that was the oldest guy on the team. The next guy in terms of experience were D'Angelo Russell and Karl Anthony Towns, and those guys don't exactly scream taking a guy under their wing to teach him how to be an NBA player from a dealing with everything, from a being smart with your money, to a just growing up and maturing as a 19-year-old. And bringing somebody like Ricky Rubio in, I'm a huge fan of. Ricky's a great teammate. Ricky's a great, he's a solid on-court point guard, a solid on-court leader, but he's a great leader just in the locker room. He's a great kind of guy to have in your organization, especially when you have a lot of young guys that you're trying to mold. But that wasn't a surprise. And then following that, the Warriors took James Wiseman. There was I don't think there was major speculation, but the question had to be posed when you get news that Klay Thompson has a serious lower leg injury. Does that change your approach to this pick? Now, maybe if Edwards was still on the board, maybe that would have changed their pick, but still, I think Wiseman was the right choice there. At number 2 for the Warriors, and that left LaMelo Ball to be drafted by the Hornets. I still think LaMelo has the highest ceiling in the entire draft. He's a 6'7" point guard with the ball on the string, and he can pass it wherever he wants to. He's got court vision like nobody else, and if you can just work on these intangibles, he's going to get the keys to that organization, so he's going to be happy. It was clear that he didn't want to go to Minnesota, where he wasn't going to have the keys to the organization. They're going to hand him the keys in Charlotte, and he's going to get, there are going to be some ooh moments, there are going to be some ah moments though, and it's going to be exciting. And that's what the Hornets desperately needed: talent, and it's indisputable that LaMelo Ball has a lot of talent. How that translates, yet to be seen, of course, but it will be exciting to watch LaMelo play in the NBA, and it'll get them on national television more. It'll it'll get people excited in Charlotte, and all of these are things that have just not been the case for the Hornets franchise recently, especially since Kemba Walker left to go to the Boston Celtics. The first sort of big sort of whoa, that guy got drafted really soon, really early, was the Bulls went ahead and drafted Florida State forward Patrick Williams. Williams had definitely been shooting up big boards, and he shot all the way up to 4. I liked some other things for the Bulls here. I thought Deni Avdija, the Israeli forward, is a great playmaker, and I thought he would have helped the Bulls in a better way than Williams. Now, Williams is super young, the youngest American-born player in the draft this year, and he's gonna be great on the defensive end. It's certainly up in the air what he's gonna be on the offensive end, and if he can play the 3, because you've got Lauri Markkanen and Wendell Carter at the 4 and the 5, and the Bulls clearly really like those guys. The Bulls like Kobe White, so it didn't look like they were going to draft a point guard there. I thought they could have used a playmaker, though. I really did. And Patrick Williams, at least right now, is not a playmaker. But then again, he's super young, and it's not completely out of the question that he could develop into a playmaker for that team. And, of course, that's what they're banking on in Chicago, is that's what he will end up doing. But that was the top 4. Okoro went to the Cavs. That I love that shift. You had Obi Toppin on the board, which would have fit the profile of a Cavs draft pick from recently, in the sense that he's an offense first player that has issues on the defensive end. He was there still, and they went with the guy like Okoro that can immediately be the best defender on that team, and you feel pretty good about that. I liked that pick a lot for the Cavs. Rounding out the lottery, it was Onyeka Okongwu at 6 for the Hawks, joining, sort of solidifying that front court with John Collins. There are some other guys I would have liked to see go there. I would have liked to see them get a playmaker as well, because when Trae Young's not on the floor, it's just not good. 7, the Pistons drafted a point guard in Killian Hayes. I like that for them. The Knicks were in love with Obi Toppin. It was not a secret that they were trying to move up to 5 or so to draft him at 5. He ended up dropping all the way to 8, and they were able to get him anyways. The Wizards did get Deni Avdija at 9. I like that a lot as another playmaker, and you don't have to get that playmaker and add to the questions at, what kind of minutes is he going to get with Brad Beal and John Wall in the backcourt. The Suns drafted Jalen Smith for the Maryland guy. That wasn't who I thought they were going to pick. That doesn't mean I don't like the pick. The Spurs went after Devin Vassell. The Kings, Tyrese Halliburton, the Iowa State point guard. Pelicans drafted Kira Lewis. I really like that fit there. Speedy guy, and who's going to be a lot of fun to watch alongside Zion Williamson. The Celtics, to round out the lottery, drafted Aaron Nesmith, the Vanderbilt sharpshooter, and that just, that adds a dimension to your offense that you can draw up plays for Aaron Nesmith immediately. He's that good of a shooter, and he should continue to be that good of a shooter in the NBA. I mean, we're talking about a guy who last year shot a ridiculous percentage from the 3-point line, like genuinely stupid. Last year, Aaron Nesmith, the second-year guard at Vanderbilt, averaged 23 points while shooting 52.2% from the 3-point line. He was making 4.3 of his 8.2 shots, 3-point shots per game. He doesn't do it much else. 0.9 assists per game, 4.9 rebounds. He'll get you a couple rebounds, but man, he can shoot the heck out of it. He only played in 14 games, so it's skewed a little bit. But when you're shooting 50% like that through 14 games, you've clearly got a stroke. The Boston Celtics went and got him at 14, and that was the lottery. Let's talk about some of the picks that I really liked. Aleksej Pokusevski, Poku, drafted by the Thunder with the number 17 pick. He has the most interesting skill set in this draft. He's 7 feet. He's agile. He's got handles. He plays like a guard. In terms of guys who, there's nobody who looks as close to and plays as close to Kevin Durant as this guy. Now, he's not the same player. That's not even what I'm saying. He's not even close in terms of his ceiling. At least I don't think. And certainly that wasn't the, Kevin Durant was awesome at Texas and everyone knew it, and he went second in the draft. But Poku is an interesting case that's just going to need time to develop, and that's what I love about all the Thunder picks. The Thunder drafted Poku at 17. They drafted Poku at 17. They drafted Theo Maledon at 34, another two-way point guard. He can play off the ball, he can play on the ball. He's a French guy. Vic Krejci will be a draft and stash kind of guy early, but specifically Pokusevski, they can afford to take some risks, and for multiple reasons, because they have so many first-round picks, and they also have so many first-round picks, and also they just have the time, and there's no pressure on them, and that's good for guys that could be projects, guys that you're not really sure how they're going to work out in the NBA. Raptors drafted Malachi Flynn with the 29th pick. Love that a lot. Really, really love that pick. The Mavericks, somehow Tyrell Terry dropped all the way to 31, where the Mavericks got that pick. Picked him up with the 31st pick. Really like that as well. The Grizzlies did a lot of good things. Traded up to get Desmond Bane at 30th. Traded up to get Xavier Tillman at 35. And they did it without giving up a single future first-round draft pick. They gave up, I think, a total of 3 second-round draft picks between the two teams, but that is a price well paid. Nico Mannion was once a lottery pick type guy prior to the last college basketball season. He got drafted at 48th by the Warriors. I like that. The Sixers, they did so much on draft night. They get Tyrese Maxey, Isaiah Joe, and Paul Reed, but they make a trade to get Seth Curry, and all of a sudden, Daryl Morey sent Josh Richardson to Dallas for Seth Curry, got 3 picks and the Al Horford trade, getting off of Al Horford's contract. He's going to work quickly, and I'm a big believer in like there's no one move that is going to fix Philly. Elton Brand has messed up that roster that much. But Morey made like 4 right decisions in the same day, and that changes things quickly. You know what I mean? So I was very impressed by what Philly did in the draft. As for some other teams here on draft night, Milwaukee walking away with two guys in the second round that I like, and Jordan Nwora from Louisville and Utah State's Sam Merrill. I like both of those guys. I think they'll both be able to give it to help off the bench. We talked about the Memphis Grizzlies. Let's see here. The Denver Nuggets got Zeke Naji and RJ Hampton. I like those picks. The Mavericks went out and got Tyrell Terry. And then they got 2 guys that help completely redefine the defense of that team. They get Josh Richardson in that trade for Seth Curry. That was a great trade for both teams, especially when the Mavericks go and draft someone like Tyrell Terry, who I think can shoot it just as well as Seth did. Pretty close to immediately. I don't know off the top of my head what Seth was shooting. I'm guessing it's in the high 30s in terms of percentage last season. In 64 games, he shot... Okay, that was... I apologize, Seth. That was not nearly respectable enough. In 64 games, he shot 45% from the three-point line. Okay, Terry's not going to shoot that well immediately, but he is going to come in and help fill a similar role. But then you draft Josh Green, who's an athletic guy. he has some playmaking abilities, but he's super athletic, a great on-ball defender. Tyler Bay, also a great defender, and both of them are going to, along with Josh Richardson, you all of a sudden have a core of guys that you can lean on defensively if you're in Dallas. And when you have Luka, that's what you need, and all of a sudden you're a contender. And they were already closer to contention than I think anybody thought they were after the playoffs. But one of the things that they needed was somebody to completely lost my train of thought. But it was clear in that series that they had nobody to guard Kawhi Leonard, and they got some guys in the draft and they got some guys in trades that you feel better about guarding Kawhi Leonard than whoever they had to put on, Dorian Finney-Smith, an undersized forward. So that's a good move. I like that move a lot. But yeah, it was a good draft night. It wasn't nearly as crazy as I think people thought it was going to be, especially up at the top. Like I said, all 14 lottery picks went to the teams that they were supposed to go to. There were no trades in that situation, and there you go. I like a lot of players in these drafts. I will be firmly in the camp of, even though the top of this conference isn't great. Excuse me, not the top of this conference. The top of this draft class isn't great relative to other top draft classes. This is a deep, like Sadiq Bey, 19th. That's great value there. Malachi Flynn, Desmond Bane, Tyrell Terry in the second round. There might not be very many superstars in this draft. I'll be curious to see in 5 years how many all-stars are in this draft. Even if Anthony Edwards, James Wiseman, and LaMelo Ball haven't gotten people excited quite like some of the other top 3 picks, like the top 3 picks next year, specifically Cade Cunningham, who is first on everybody's board right now. I like the draft class. I think there are a lot of players that are going to impact teams for a long time in the NBA. And once you get out of the top 5 or so, the top 3, if you're drafting guys that you feel good about making an impact on your team for a while, I think that's a pretty good place to start. And there are guys, pretty much 4 through 16, I would bet on. Then you have some of your Poku at 17, but then 18 through the end of the 18 through 26, I got faith in, and then a lot of guys in the second round as well. I really, really like. Coming up next, we're going to talk about Klay a little bit, talk about Gordon Hayward a little bit. NBA free agency is among us, and we need to do some talking about it. We'll do that next, right here on the JMULL Show, 110sportsmedia.com. Thank you so much for watching. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the JMULL Show on a Friday, twitch.tv/110sports, 110sportsmedia.com/live. Thank you so much for joining us on a Friday. Listen, this is really this is genuinely, I'm genuinely sad about this. Klay's going to miss the next season. Torn Achilles. Which just makes me so sad. Of course for Klay, because everyone likes Klay. Nobody says anything bad about Klay. So first and foremost for Klay, just makes me sad for Klay. Working so hard to get back for this season after tearing an ACL, only to have a torn Achilles in a workout, just a month before the season actually starts. It's just, it really is horrible. But selfishly, I was so ready to see where the Warriors were about to fall in the hierarchy of the NBA, because the last time this team was healthy, the last real version of this team we saw that was healthy had Kevin Durant, and it was the best basketball team on the planet. What is it now? And there were already questions about, okay, what kind of Klay do you get back? An ACL injury. Guys have come back from ACL injuries before, especially a guy like Klay who's not super explosive and spends a lot of his time shooting jump shots. It certainly wouldn't. I didn't think it was going to impact him like Derrick Rose tearing his ACL impacted him. But, they come back, they have Steph, they have Draymond, they have Klay. You add another piece, you get James Wiseman second overall, and then all of a sudden you've got you got a basketball team that there aren't very many teams I get to before I get to the Warriors in terms of teams that I think could win a title. Teams that I would pick to win the title. They probably wouldn't have been at the top, and they wouldn't have been the clear favorite. But they would have been up there, and it would have been so fascinating to see them compete as this team that we haven't seen since before KD joined the squad. And also, we haven't seen this team in this new NBA, not truly, with LeBron and a team that has another superstar like Anthony Davis. The Clippers with Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. The new Sixers team, the Nets with KD, the Mavericks with Luka Doncic, the Nuggets with Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic, the Suns like this with Chris Paul. Now there are so many teams that are different and so many different contenders. You have the Heat that are contenders, the Bucks, the Celtics, the Sixers. There's so many teams, and I was fascinated to see where they fell. Where they fell in this hierarchy of title contenders, and we're just not going to get that. And now you have to seriously ask the question: Is this the end of the Warriors dynasty? Is this the end of this Warriors run? Right? Because that's completely fair. It's a completely fair question to ask, because we're going to have to wait until 2021-22 season to see what's actually popping with this team, and what kind of Klay do you get back? At that point, it would have been, by the time Klay steps back on the floor in an NBA game, it will have been almost 3 full years, 2.5, since he last played in an NBA game, right? Because the last time he played in an NBA game was the 2019 NBA Finals. So it's already been 1.5 years. A year from now, when the next NBA season starts, it'll be 2.5 years. And, it takes a while to come back from an Achilles injury. I mean, KD tore his Achilles in the same series, right? I just say, is it complete that then Steph's a year older, Draymond's a year older? I mean, if James Wiseman comes in and ends up being the best player in this draft, then maybe. But it's a fair question to ask. But that at that point you have, maybe the Suns thing works out. Maybe you have, maybe the Mavericks are up there as well. The LeBron and the Lakers will still be there. Maybe the Clippers have figured it out by then. The Nuggets are even better. There are so many ways in which the West could be even better than it is now. And it's really good right now. Maybe, the Grizzlies could come out and finish 7th or 6th or 7th in the could have a great season with these draft picks and Ja Morant, Jaren Jackson Jr. Jaren Jackson Jr. It was confirmed that he won't be back right at the beginning of the season, but they come in, have a season that's better than it's supposed to be, and then all of a sudden they're a team that is fighting for home court advantage in the first round of the playoffs. The Pelicans are in a similar situation, right? They're a little bit different. Giving your Drew Holiday going to the Bucks, that's a little bit of a different situation there, but there's so many ways that they could be better, and so it's fair to ask the question. They could be even farther back. They do add Kelly Oubre, absorbing his $14.5 million expiring contract into a trade exception. It is going to cost the franchise $66 million additionally in luxury tax. Golden State now has a historic luxury bill on the horizon, $134 million based on the team's current payroll. The Warriors will receive a discount on their tax bill if league revenue declines this season, but you knew that they were probably going to spend part of that trade exception, and then Klay goes down, and you knew that they were going to get a guy like Oubre who fits into that trade exception. But man, that's a tough blow for the NBA in general, in my opinion. And you really do just hate to see that, for the Warriors, for Klay, for the NBA. None of it is good. Gordon Hayward opted out of his $34.2 million contract with the Celtics for the 2020-21 season. He's now an unrestricted free agent. Beginning at 6 p.m. tonight. Hayward instantly becomes the biggest name to hit the open market this offseason. His future is the number one topic right now in the NBA, is where he's going to go next. 3 options available to Hayward now: re-sign with the Celtics on a long-term deal, sign with one of the 2 teams that have significant cap space, that's the New York Knicks and Atlanta Hawks, as a free agent, or agree to a sign and trade deal with a team that doesn't have enough cap space to sign him. Right, so you sign and trade, so you agree to a sign and trade, and then the Celtics sign him and then trade him somewhere else, and then you can do that, and then you're getting something back. The team that's getting Gordon Hayward gets to offload salary so that they can actually afford Gordon Hayward. I can't, $34.2 million is a lot of money. Of course. But Gordon is completely in a different situation than he was supposed to be in Boston. He was supposed to be the first or second option on that team. He was supposed to be a guy that was going to help the Celtics try and win a championship. And then, in the first quarter of his first game with the Celtics, he snaps his leg in half. I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it. Just a horrible, horrible injury, and then it takes him a while to he's out for a year. It takes him a while to get his footing back, right? And then when he finally looks better, he comes back, and then he breaks his hand. Then he has another injury, and it's just at the beginning of the 2019-20 season, he looked really good, and then got hurt again, and then had to rehab again, and now he's the 4th or 5th option. I mean, we got Brown, Tatum, Kemba. So the 4th option on that team. I can understand why he wants to go find somewhere else to play. And he could still resign with Boston. I don't think it's not a toxic situation necessarily, but I can understand him wanting to test the waters and see what's out there for him. in free agency, what kind of sign and trade might there be, so on and so forth. But the free agency starts very, very soon. Starts very, very soon. Today, November 20th, 6 p.m. Eastern is when free agency begins. It's going to be a crazy, crazy weekend. Some of the guys that are free agents: Fred VanVleet, Gordon Hayward, Bogdan Bogdanovic, Joe Harris, Danilo Gallinari, Davis Bertans, Montrezl Harrell, Christian Wood, and then we start to get to guys like Goran Dragic, Rondo, Jeremy Grant, KCP, Paul Millsap, Tristan Thomas, Derek Favors. It's not a super high ceiling free agency. And the other thing is that there aren't very many teams that and Anthony Davis is a free agent because he opted out of that contract, but I don't think there's any chatter that he's going anywhere other than the Lakers on a different deal. And the other part of this is that there's so few teams that have the cap space to give these guys the kind of money that they're going to need, which makes the possible places they could go just different, and makes it just a little bit of a different conversation with so few teams that actually have the money to spend. And nobody wants to be in the luxury tax because the NBA is not making a ton of money right now. Well, relatively speaking to how much money they're usually making. They're still making a crap load of money. Just it's just different, and changes the way things operate. Coming up next, the podium. I got some names that I came up with, derived from star athletes to name zoo animals. I'm excited about it. We'll do that next on the JMULL Show. 110sportsmedia.com. Welcome back to the JMULL Show on a Friday. Twitch.tv/wanted sports, wantedsportsmedia.com/live. Thank you so much for joining us, being a part of our day. The Memphis Zoo named a giraffe after Ja Morant. Named him Ja-Raff. What's up? I love that. I love it so much. Ja-Raff the giraffe. Love it. And whoever came up with that, I was telling somebody, I was like, that is so obvious and so good, but I would have never thought of it because I was trying way too hard to figure out what kind of name I was going to give the giraffe to name it after Ja Morant or name it after somebody playing for the Grizzlies. That's so perfect. I wonder how long they've had that in the bag. How long ago they were like, it just dawned on them. I wonder how long it's been. And then it's like, okay, when we have a baby giraffe, we have to call him Ja-Raff. What a legend. And seeing Ja Morant get in on the fun on Twitter was cool. He's so very much embraced Memphis as a city. And seeing him really get excited about everybody who's coming in the draft. I love Ja Morant. The Grizzlies using a top pick again to get somebody who seems genuinely interested in being around the Grizzlies. I got two. And I wasn't going to force this. I feel pretty good about these two that I came up with. Okay. The Los Angeles Zoo. What is the Los Angeles Zoo called? Is it just called the Los Angeles Zoo? Let's see. LA Zoo. Yeah. LA Zoo. lazoo.org. The LA Zoo. They have a baby zebra. And that baby zebra, his name, drumroll please, Zebron. What's up? Zebron. And according to a friend of mine, it's actually pronounced zebra, which makes it even better. Zebron, the zebra. Zebron, I feel like I'm like the spaghetti. No, Zebron the zebra. Zebron. What's up? I'm pretty proud of that one. I'm more proud of this one. I'm more proud of this one. The Miami Zoo. Let's see, what's the Miami Zoo called? Is it just the Miami Zoo? Yep, zoomiami.org. Zoo Miami. Zoological Park in Miami-Dade County, Florida. Zoo Miami. 4.6 stars on Yelp, by the way. Google, whatever. Google reviews. 4.6 stars. The Miami Zoo has a new baby cheetah. Baby cheetah coming to the Miami Zoo. You know where this is going, right? And you go and you name him after one of the best shortstops of all time, and owner of the Miami Marlins. I don't know if he's actually is he. I think is he the majority owner now? Non-controlling. Derek Jeter. Jeter the cheetah. I love it so much. I'm fast. I'm gonna come up with more, but that's what I've come up with so far: is Zebron, the baby zebra, and Jeter, the baby cheetah. Sup? I love it. I'm in love. I really am. But I might have to update you guys on this because this is making me laugh really hard. When the news broke about the Memphis Zoo baby giraffe and trying to come up with other ones as well, it was making me laugh quite a bit. Coming up next, we'll take a look at the weekend schedule for college football and the NFL, and then do some FY. Get out here for the day. You're watching the JMULL Show on sportsmedia.com. Zebron and Jita. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the JMULL Show on a Friday. It is a weird time in the Big Ten because the two biggest Big Ten games this weekend involve Northwestern and Indiana. Indiana and Ohio State are basically playing for the spot in the Big Ten championship game out of the East, the Big Ten East. 11 a.m. We're starting with a bang on Saturday, 11 a.m. Central. Indiana at Ohio State. Listen, this game might not be close because Ohio State is that good. And Indiana, they keep getting the job done, but they've played Penn State, who is not good, as they were supposed to be, Rutgers, Michigan, and Michigan State. They've handled the last three games. They're a good football team, don't get me wrong. But Ohio State is just different. But nonetheless, that's the most important Big Ten game of the season so far. The other most important Big Ten game of the season so far is at 2:30 Central, Wisconsin at Northwestern. Fascinated by that one as well. Those are the two highlights of the day. Oklahoma State is at Oklahoma, which is an interesting one. In-state rivals. Apart from that, there's not a whole lot going on this weekend. Coastal Carolina, number 15. Coastal Carolina tries to remain undefeated on the season. Clemson goes to Florida State, but that's not. I'm guessing we'll see Trevor Lawrence back in action for the first time. That's interesting to see just how he's playing after being out with COVID. Apart from that, there's not a whole lot of exciting things going on in college football. There's so many. There postponed matches. The postponed games this week: Ole Miss, Texas A&M, Georgia, Miami, Charlotte, Marshall, Texas, Kansas, Central Arkansas, Louisiana, Michigan State, Maryland, Wake Forest, Duke, Houston, SMU, UNL, Monroe, Louisiana Tech, UNLV, Colorado State, San Jose State, Fresno State, Navy, South Florida, and Arizona State at Colorado. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 postponed or canceled games this weekend. I don't need to tell you about the cases in the country right now. The Seahawks holding on at home against the Cardinals, beating them by 7 points. They had a run game. Carlos Hyde, 79 yards. Russell Wilson, 10 carries for 42 yards. Kyler Murray, no rushing touchdowns this time around. They didn't have a great running game. The Cardinals, the Seahawks were able to shut that down a little bit as well. Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf, the receiving touchdowns on the night. As for the rest of the NFL this week, some of the more interesting games here. Green Bay at Indianapolis is an interesting one. Los Angeles at Tampa Bay on Monday Night Football. Apart from that, it's a pretty slow week in the NFL. Otherwise, the biggest game of the weekend was the Thursday Night Football game. Buffalo, Chicago, New York, and San Francisco with byes this week. For your information, the NBA. Free agency starts tonight, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's going to go crazy. We'll talk about all of that on Monday. Twitch.tv/110sports. Stick around for my show again at 11 a.m. Eastern on Monday. Touchline Talk with Josh Doring and Around the Bases with Chris Brown on Tuesday, 11 a.m. Eastern and 1 p.m. Eastern. But that's about all I have for you today. I hope that you have a great weekend. Stay safe, please. Follow the rules, wear a mask, all that fun stuff. And we'll meet back here on Monday to talk about what I'm sure will be a wild weekend in free agency, what happened over the weekend in sports, and whatever else we need to discuss. Thank you so much for being a part of the JMULL show here on a Friday. We'll meet right back here, 110sportsmedia.com/live. We'll do that on Monday.